Morning, everybody. First, I'd like to thank Monsignor for generously cutting his homily in half so that we could have some time to do this. So there was a trend there, so this is the third or fourth time I've done this, and each time he gets a little shorter and shorter, so it's all good. My name is Rick Spillane, and as Monsignor said, I'm the chair of our new facilities committee. So on behalf of the committee and the staff and Monsignor here, I just want to give you a quick update on where we're at with our phase one of our plan to grow our parish home. So basically three things I want to cover. The first is giving you a financial overview. The second is where we're at in the process and the way ahead. And the third is, probably most importantly, how everybody here and everybody that's a part of the parish can join the effort. So to start with, when we talk about a financial overview, there's two components, right? There's cost, and then how we're going to get there. And so the cost portion of it, if you remember from our last update in phase one, is going to include our new church home, which will seat about 800. It's going to include our connecting structure that'll host both classroom and meeting space, and then there's some expanded parking. So there's obviously the construction piece to one part of it, but there's a lot of associated costs such as clearing and site preparation. There's architect and professional fees, and then there's what we call furnishings, the stuff that goes inside both our classrooms and then furnishing our new church home. And so when we look at kind of the current, we call it a rough estimate because as we get closer into the process to actually moving forward, we'll get a little more fidelity. But the bottom line is right now, when you add all that up, it comes in just under $7 million for that phase one portion. And then there's an additional about $500,000 that the diocese requires is what they call a contingency fund. And it's just what it sounds like. It's just in case for there's unforeseen circumstances to make sure we can be successful to get the project across the finish line. The hope is as we move closer, again, our estimates will be refined and we'll get more fidelity. And hopefully it'll be revised downward. We don't know at this point. So we're going with that kind of top line number, which again, if you add those two together, comes to about 7.5 million. So that's the top line, or the bottom line. The top line, or that's the top line. The bottom line is how do we get there? Well, it's a component of what do we have on hand, and then the other two components would be what can we borrow from the diocese, and the third component is what can we raise in terms of a targeted fundraising campaign here within the parish. So to start with, what do we have on hand? We have about $1.6 million toward the project as a result of the generosity, of many people here and some who have come before us, that this dream of building a new church home has been going on for several decades. And so our goal is to realize that dream right now, not just for us today, but for the generation that'll come after us, just like somebody planned for what we have right now. And so that 1.6 million, we expect also, if the bypass ever happens, they're going to take a little slice of our front yard. Won't affect anything we have here or any of our plans, any existing facilities or our future planned facilities. But the good news is they're going to compensate us, so we expect to pick up a couple $100,000 from them, which would be good for the Department of Transportation. Add that together, planning big picture-wise, we have about 1.8 million. We have a top line of about 7.5 million. If you do the math, that's somewhere in the 20 to 25% range of what we need to get. So the other two components, how do we get there in terms of a diocesan loan and then a targeted fundraising campaign? So the process to do that, let's start with the diocese. So we submitted to the diocese what's called a finance plan. And just like in your own home, if you apply for a mortgage or a construction loan, a finance plan basically says, here's our past history and here's our future projections. The diocese will staff that and formally review it. And from that process, they'll basically determine, one, are we a good credit risk, which right now the answer is yes. And two, what do we kind of qualify for in terms of a loan? And they'll loan up to a certain percentage contingent on our demonstrated ability to project that we can pay back the note. And so that's one piece of it is that process is working right now, and we're hoping to hear back from the diocese, and it'll help frame, what we can reasonably expect. Now, obviously, the less money you have to borrow, the better. And so that leads us to the second piece, which is the capital campaign. The capital campaign, if you're not familiar, is simply a targeted fundraising effort that we'll conduct here within the parish. So based on the diocese direction, we've hired a capital campaign consultant. So timing-wise, what you might expect is they've given us some initial feedback that, looking at our numbers and everything from what they see and what the diocese sees, we have a very reasonable and feasible plan for what we want to execute. So the capital campaign consultant, the first step they're going to take is conduct what's called a feasibility assessment. And what that really means is, based on the preliminary estimates of how we look, they'll take a much deeper dive and they'll probably actually be talking to many of our parishioners. And part of that is to kind of validate some of their initial assumptions about, how we look in terms of what's reasonable to fundraise. That process of a feasibility assessment is going to start fairly soon, and we expect it to wind up by early June. Assuming no big surprises from that, we can reasonably expect then, in terms of actually kicking off a capital campaign, we'd reasonably expect it probably to start sometime this fall. Generally, a capital campaign will last anywhere from 6 to 8 months, and that's kind of what we're targeting. So in terms of process timing, we'll continue to work. We've got to go through some other approvals and review process with the actual schematics and drawings. We don't foresee any issues with that, and we will work that with the diocese directly. The big picture is, in terms of timing, people always wonder, when can we start? And so it's obviously a function. The biggest driver, aside from permitting, is the financial, being postured financially successful. So again, going back to our top line number, it's a component of what we can raise in our capital campaign, what we can reasonably borrow from the diocese, and once we have somewhere between 30 and 50% actually in hand of that top line number, in addition to commitments from the capital campaign and the diocese loan, we can begin. And so that's kind of what, kind of big picture-wise, and people ask, when's that going to be? Well, it all depends on how successful our capital campaign is and how quickly we actually get money in hand. And so that's, from a process standpoint, where we're standing. The good news is, again, the feedback we've received is our plan is very doable. Parish our size, if you look at our growing community, we are postured for success. It's just a matter of now going forth and doing it. Which leads me to the third point. This is our parish home. Somebody planned for what we have right now, a few decades ago. We're planning not just for us here today, but for the generation that's going to come after us. And so part of being a part of that, what we're trying to do is make sure that everybody who would like to has an opportunity to join in the effort. So what we're asking people to do is we've set up some teams and subcommittees, I guess we're calling them, but they're kind of teams that are going to help us. Primarily, a lot of it's just doing like research and helping make recommendations on how we want to furnish the church, for instance. And when we say furnishings, it's everything from an altar, ambo, the baptismal font, all the stuff that goes into a church, in addition to pews and all that. And so we need people to help with that process of researching it within a budget and helping provide recommendations on what should we do with that. And so we'll have a team to do that. We'll have another team that'll cover stuff like decor and colors and materials and things like that. We'll also have some teams that are not part of the phase 1 project, but are smaller projects that can kick off at any time. For example, a columbarium, that type of thing. For example, a playground. And so there are things that are smaller projects that will probably be self-funding. But we need people to join our effort to kind of give us a lot of information on that and recommendations. So if you look in the narthex back there, there's actually a poster and there's a list of kind of some teams out there. There'll probably be more, but if there's something that you're interested in, and especially if you have a talent for it, it would be great if you would sign up. So for today, there's simply some paper copies. You can sign up and leave your contact information. Tell us what you're interested in. And each of those teams will have a leader assigned, and the leader will contact you and kind of let you know the way ahead. Not every team, depending on which team it is, the timing of when you actually start doing stuff will vary. We're not probably going to start Monday, but right now we're just trying to build the teams and gauge who is interested. And what I tell you again, this is your home. So join the effort, be a part of it. You know, we definitely need your treasure, but we also need your time and talent. So I ask you to prayerfully consider that, and I thank you for your generosity that's gotten us this far. And thank you, Monsignor, for the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick, and your team. The book of Proverbs, chapter 29, verse 18 says, "Where there is no vision, a people perish." We have a vision. We will not perish. What's our vision? To live a life worthy of our calling, grow as intentional disciples, but at the same time plan to expand our facilities. I know our dream will become a reality. I just want also to thank, when you came in, you realized how our premises look like, everything. Definitely, we want to do this together. From the book of Proverbs, chapter 29, verse 18, we read, "Where there is no vision, a people perish." We have a vision, and we have our vision to live a life worthy of our calling, to grow as disciples, graced in the Eucharist, and at the same time, expand our facilities so as to fulfill our mission. Some of our friends are just outside. They cannot be with, and this was intended to be just a fellowship hall. This is not our church. I know some of you want to kneel down. There are no pews. That's why we definitely try to make sure that we together will grow together as a parish and fulfill our mission here.